so much of being capable of an intimate relationship is being at peace with yourself. Because
Yeah.
if we're not, if we need to be loved to feel okay about ourselves, if we need someone to tell us we're okay, we're coming in a way that's not going to be, it's designed to fail because you can't extract a sense of self from another person. And so the work of working out our relationship to ourselves is essential to intimacy.
Right, here we are again, and I am so excited to have Dr. Finlayson-Fife with me today. She's been on the podcast before, and she has played a role in my own healing. And so I've asked her to come back today. If you don't already follow her, there are many ways to do so, and all of that information will be in the show notes. So thank you for being here again.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, being willing to talk about this. We're going to jump into this idea that I'm going to start healing my own sexuality, and hold up, it's super triggering, and now I
Mhm.
don't want to.
Yeah,
and and that's
sure.
where I found myself um, so many
Right.
years ago when I started. I
Yeah.
resisted for a long time, coming from my own betrayals in my marriage. I
Yeah.
just, why would I want to heal the thing that hurt me so much?
Right.
And so I kind of was a little bit in that victim of this thing happened to me,
Yep.
and why do I have to fix it
Yep.
kind of
Right.
mentality.
Sure. Which
Yeah.
makes a lot of
And
sense. I mean, it really does. Like, because we're not stupid, that is to say, if something has created pain in your life, the idea of like stepping back into it is like, wait, why would I do that? And then the other idea that you're already highlighting is, which is on point, is like, oh, the reason this betrayal happened is because you weren't sexual enough. You should go fix that. I mean,
oh
everything
my
in our
God.
dignity is saying, I'm not going to do that. And that makes
And
perfect sense, right? Because we don't want to be blamed for, or
mm,
somehow be told we're culpable for something that someone did to us that was deeply harming. So that resistance makes perfect sense to me because
yeah.
it's your dignity on the line. You don't want to betray it. And that's a good thing. It's a good impulse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So as much as I wanted it, it was that inner battle of, I want to experience what people talk about, that they're having this intimacy and love making that is the spiritual experience. I wasn't having that.
Sure.
And so although I wanted it, it just seemed like the biggest mountain I had to climb
Right.
that felt unattainable. So when I found your courses,
Mhm.
and to be clear, I don't know if you even know this, I'm not LDS anymore. And I
Yeah.
still recommend your programs. And I've had friends
Yeah.
who've taken your programs who are Christian.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I highly recommend it,
Yeah,
because it's what we were raised with, and it's
that's right.
undoing some of those little beliefs that maybe don't
Right.
actually go along with.
Yeah, my focus has
Oh,
been, having grown up LDS myself, my focus has very much been on the LDS population because it's the group I care very much about. I know the challenges that are within our group, but it's very much about the human experience and very
yes.
relevant for people that are no longer LDS, relevant for people who have grown up in an ideology, whether that's Christian, Jewish, Muslim, there's that kind of told them who to be. And
Mm,
they felt like they were so busy conforming that they lost something central within themselves and, especially their sexuality. So it's very much about how do you help people reclaim their strength, reclaim their
mm.
vitality, this sort of core part of themselves without being subject to other people's control. That's very
Mm.
much what I'm trying to help people with.
And you do, and I love that that's how you described it, because I didn't, I mean, hearing that, if I could have heard
Yeah.
that years ago, I
Yeah.
would have probably been like, "Okay, this seems like a safe space for me to start
Right.
a to step into."
Right.
I really just trusted. I think I saw your Instagram post about it, and I was like, "Okay, this is fitting for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it." And so I stepped into, I think I bought a bundle, like the women's course and then the
Yeah.
couples course.
Yeah.
And I started to do it on my own. I told my partner, you're not a part of this. This is,
Mhm.
I am doing this on my own. I'm tired of being pushed.
Yep,
I'm
yep,
tired of being told I'm a prude and that I, just
right.
like you said, I need to be
Yep,
the one to fix things.
that's right.
So I started into this path and I don't know what I mean, I was scared, but I think I thought it would be rainbows and butterflies. Like
Um,
it's going to be freeing and I'm going to be great. But what happened was I started those first sections, I guess, of the course and was triggered. Like,
mhm.
she's telling me what?
Yeah, yeah,
And how is this okay? And I have some
yeah,
scrupulosity tendencies inside of
yeah,
me. And so it just was like so many different little battles going on
yeah,
inside my
yeah,
head.
yeah. Right,
Yeah.
for sure. So one of the things that all human beings do, whether you grow up religious or not, is that we borrow our sense of right and wrong from outside of ourselves. And we have to start that way. We don't have an option. We're just being born and we're trying to make sense of the world that we're in. And so we learn, okay, these are the rules of the road. This is what makes you safe. And part of what I'm challenging in the course is I'm helping people see some of the messaging that they got that they maybe believed in, deferred to, but has cost them a lot of their personal strength. And you'd think people would just be like, oh, right, I am
Yes.
free. But instead, it's scary because while we don't want to be controlled, we're also very afraid of our own responsibility.
Yes.
Right. And so a lot of times we'd rather sit around and say how mad we are that the external authority got it wrong rather than grow out of our dependency on it. Do you know what I mean? Like we'd
Mhm.
rather be a victim of it getting it wrong than kind of taking deeper responsibility for ourselves and stepping into our lives more deeply and with more wisdom. So we can kind of get stuck there because we're afraid of autonomy, right? I mean, we're afraid of responsibility. So it is, I'm taking down a paradigm in the beginning of the Art of Desire course
Yeah.
that, and I tell people this is going to be a little stressful, right? Because I talk about it a little bit like renovating your kitchen. You want a better kitchen.
Mm.
You want a better kitchen. It's driving you nuts. But the first thing is coming in with the sledgehammer, and then it's super stressful. You're like, I don't even know how to warm up my, you know, pizza pocket or whatever I'm going to eat because there's nothing else to be made here. I don't even know where the stupid microwave is and it's covered with dust. So you're very stressed initially, but it's
Mm.
necessary for rebuilding something stronger. And so, it's part of the growth process. But yes, it's not comfortable. I mean,
Mm.
the easy courses, I don't know where those exist.
Well, and that's the hard thing is if we truly want it, like you said, we start to take that responsibility, which is what I did, even though it
Yeah.
was activating me and like she doesn't understand where I've been. I was very
Yeah.
victimy. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I can't believe she's forcing me to dig into this when what
Uh-huh.
if I had never done any work through my betrayal and I was stepping into this? I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
so scared for like what wasn't even happening to me, truthfully. I'd
Yeah.
already done so much work to
Yeah.
get there, and yet I had like the layers of my sexuality had
Yes.
not even been touched, which
Yeah. Right.
it sounds wild, but to go from I've been cheated on
Yeah.
and I'm going to figure out how to heal that and repair that into my marriage, it makes sense. You have to work through the sexuality
Yeah.
factor, right? And
Yeah.
yet it was just like, no, I'll do that later, like in
Well,
a couple
yeah,
years,
for
which
sure.
makes no
And I think
sense.
for a couple of, I mean, but I can sort of get it because, well, not just sort of get it. If someone's been victimized, whether that's like in their marriage or they were sexually, violated as a younger person, your mind is making a decision that to keep you safe, just stay away from sexuality. And
Yes.
it makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's a vulnerable part of ourselves. We're really getting at the core. And so sexual violation is really traumatic. It's very
Mhm.
hurtful in the truest sense of the word. I mean, it just,
So
and
vulnerable.
it's so vulnerable. And so when beautiful loving things happen with sexuality, it's also very powerful in a positive way.
Mm,
But when exploitative things happen, it's very powerful in a negative way. And so the natural inclination of the limbic brain is to just say, shut it down, right? Don't do anything with that. It's too unsafe. And that's true. My goal would never be to have somebody step back into a situation that's exploitative, or the idea that if they would just get their sexuality together, then their husband would love them. Those are
yes.
wrong-headed ideas. Those are not the ideas I'm in any way supporting, but more, how do I make peace with what was always mine,
Mm,
which is my sexuality, my body, my femininity, my core essence, right? And how do I
mhm.
reclaim it as mine rather than
Yeah.
who it should be for other people? Because a
Mm,
lot of the ways that, especially in conservative religions, that we get taught is that in the idea that your sexuality belongs to a future partner. Your sexuality
yes.
belongs to, it's a way of earning your value. And I'm trying to disabuse people of that idea, but it can be when your mind is saying, don't deal with it at all, or your mind keeps putting it in the bucket of, I have to become a person that's lovable, whose husband wouldn't cheat on her, right? Your brain
Yep.
is just kind of like, I don't want to deal with this at all.
Mm.
And nobody has to deal with it, just to be clear. You don't have to go
Yeah.
deal with your sexuality, and you certainly, whether or not you deal with it and whether or not you reconcile with your partner are two different questions, right? So
Mm.
you can make peace with your sexuality, but not make peace with your partner if your partner's not dealing
Hey.
with themselves,
Yeah.
right? Not becoming somebody worthy of that level of engagement. So those are two different things, in my opinion. But one reason why I advocate for coming to peace with your body and sexuality is because you can't really separate yourself from them. They are
Mm,
affecting how you're in the world, whether or not you're facing that directly. So if you are rejecting something that's fundamental to being who you are, fundamental to being a human, fundamental to being a woman, you are a house divided, right? You are
mm,
in a lack of integrity with yourself. And I don't mean that you need to be having sex or you need to be in a sexual relationship necessarily, but we get wiser and more anchored when we're at peace with our embodied reality, when we can accept and love our bodies and our sexuality and our sexual nature. That helps us be able to make wiser decisions with our
mm.
sexuality.
I
Oh, yeah,
really like what you're saying, and I'm hearing you say maybe not the exact words, but I felt like I self-betrayed a lot
exactly.
sexually in my marriage.
Yes,
But an interesting thought to think, I also could be self-betraying by resisting my
that's right.
healing.
Yes,
I
exactly.
hadn't really thought of it that way, but I
Right.
absolutely did. And I know for me, when I started the course and it was that tug of like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I know I
Yeah.
need to do this. I
Yes.
actually did the course 3 times
Good
in
for
a row
you. That's
because I was
awesome.
like, I've got to figure this out.
Good for
Um,
you.
but there was grief in there because of what you're
Yes,
talking about, of the recognizing the pain and the betrayal of self, of
that's right.
just saying, I'll just give this to my partner
Yes,
and I
exactly.
don't necessarily matter as much.
Yes. Yeah.
And and then to realize I do matter, and there's so much grief in that. I've even had grief of the relationship I gave to that part. We're no longer married,
Yeah.
and I know I played a big role in his own
Mm.
healing as well because
Mm.
I was so resistant and so hurt.
Yeah.
And so interesting enough, when we started doing, I did the women's course alone, of course, and then I started doing the couples course also alone, and
Mm.
then said, maybe this is something that you should look at, which is kind of funny because I know this is very common, but a
Mm.
lot of the women I work with definitely feel broken. Like
Yes.
I'm the broken one sexually.
Right.
I'm the
You
one
take it on.
who's they take on all
Yeah.
of this. It's my job to heal. And when the men actually step into it, the ones who have possibly cheated or
Yep.
they realize they have a lot of stuff in there
That's
too.
right. That's
and
right.
they aren't as healthy as they thought they were with their
Right. We
sexuality.
confuse sometimes being higher desire for sex with being healthy.
Yeah.
You say like, oh, hey, I don't have the hangups you've got the issues. And a lot of times the marriage does a kind of the man in the one up position and the woman in the one down. I mean, it's a little more complicated because women
Yeah.
can do a kind of covert one up as well. Like I'm the virtuous one, you're the, the one that
Mm.
is so hedonistic and so on. But like I don't have the issues because I want to have sex. And that's just false. They're both usually intimacy avoidant. Like how
Mm.
much do I really want to show up and be here and really know you and really be known by you? Well, men and women are probably pretty similar then in their level of development, right? Their level of comfort with that kind of intimate engagement around sexuality. So yeah, so a lot of times women are accustomed to and can be like, yeah, I'm the screwed up one sexually. I'm the one who doesn't like it. But a lot of times women don't like it for really good reasons. That is to say,
Mhm.
what's happening there is not that great, right? And showing up to manage his needs is like a terrible way to be sexual. I'd be extremely low desire if I ever thought of it that way. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh.
like, it's just not. And also going back, Ashlyn, to something you were saying, which is that sometimes when you start going in and you see the self betrayal in the way you were sexual, it can just be like a double blow because like
Mhm.
I gave this over to him. I trusted, I was trying to be sexual to take care of his needs, and then he still cheated. So it's like I betrayed myself in the first place. And then I thought that was going to make my life better. And in fact, it's made it even worse. And so I feel kind of broken in two directions. One, I
Mm.
self-betrayed and I wasn't enough for my spouse. And it's just hard. It's hard stuff to look at. The reason why I still advocate for it is even though it's painful when you're taking the blows to your kitchen, what happens is you start to go in and you start to be like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I have to be
Mm.
truer to myself. And when you start engaging with yourself differently, you start building up a stronger core. You
Yeah.
start getting wiser. You start getting more at peace, less anxious. You start being smarter about how you are in any relationship that's intimate, right? And so it's a very growth is always uncomfortable. Any meaningful growth is uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I'm working on a book right now, and I've just been writing about this a lot, which is just the process of undoing. My daughter's a violinist, and I remember she got to a certain point in her proficiency where her teacher said, your hand position is limiting your skill. Like it was a perfectly decent hand position for the level of playing, but she really had to undo it to
Mm.
have the flexibility she needed to take the next level in her playing. And so when she was working on it, she was super frustrated because like her brain already knew how to play the piece with a different position, but she had to like force herself to not do it and
Mm.
to stay in this new position. And like everything fell apart. Her vibrato got worse. Her shifting got worse. She was not in tune. And so she's like, I hate it so much. But
You
as
want
she
to give up.
you want to give up because it just is so disorienting. And your brain's like, just go back to the old way, go back to what
Yep.
feels safer and better.
It's safe, even though it's not where we want to
Exactly.
be.
It's going to limit me. Exactly. And so she
Oh,
persisted, and then it opened up a whole new level of playing for her, right? So that's how growth, that's just one picture of many, many pictures of how human beings grow. But that's what it takes. And so, yes, it's uncomfortable. I don't know another way to offer
yeah.
people. It's just if you can hold on to, it's going to help me get to a stronger place. That helps. I'm going to have a better kitchen. That helps, right? It helps to
Yes.
her.
Yeah, and for me, talking about it, not with my partner, was
Yeah.
safe. Like I
Yeah. Yeah.
had whether it's your therapist or you
Yes.
have online group, you have
Yeah,
my friends I was talking to, of just trying to unpack some of the things that
that's
I
right.
was sitting in after taking the
Yes.
course.
It's very
Um,
important. Yes.
one thing I want to just mention in case anyone else is there, it's my own experience of I felt a lot of blame for
Yeah.
my partner of, my satisfaction and
Yeah.
desire for sexual pleasure was fairly low, but
Yeah.
part of it was my own trauma I brought into my marriage. Part of
Yeah.
it was me pushing him away.
Right.
Um, so I had a partner who wanted
Yeah.
to give to me, and I just resisted, and
Yes.
in so many different ways, and then I was hurt over and over and over. So it wasn't just like he cheated and now sex
Yes.
was hard.
He's
It
bad, you're
was
good. Right. Yeah,
so
exactly. It was
no,
more
it
than that.
was so
Exactly.
layered. And
I know
I'm
that's just the
guessing
hardest thing of all. It's just so hard because it's true. It's like one idea, like I'm responsible. I've got to get myself together so he loves me. Wrong idea. But on the other hand, as you're saying, Ashlyn, like I came into the marriage not really prepared to create an intimate sexual relationship. I'd learned not to do that really. Well,
yeah.
and even the idea, don't deny your husband, which a lot of women hear on their wedding night, it's like, that's just a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea because it actually sets you up to hate sex. And
Mm,
so it's complicated because then you can also see I really wasn't, he had some legitimate complaints because I wasn't available to really create something with him. Because of a lot of the lessons I'd learned, because of my own,
mhm.
non-development in this domain. And so all of that can be true at the same time, which is
Yeah.
just not easy stuff, but
Yeah.
valuable.
And yeah, and we weren't talking, you have this vulnerable sexual experience, but then you don't necessarily talk about it. That was fairly common for us. And so
Yeah.
when we did talk about it, it was just arguing
Yeah.
or it wasn't
Right.
enough. I wasn't enough. And so I didn't
Right.
want to talk about it.
Of course.
And yeah, so me stepping into this work was it was so long into my marriage. I think it was 15 years into my marriage
Mhm.
before I started
Mhm.
to really dive into my own sexuality. And I love something you said a little bit ago of just choosing to do it like separate from your
Yes.
partner. So, like I said, I did the couples course and the women's course. You have a men's course. I
Yes.
know you have
Yeah.
others too.
Yeah. Well, I have
Um,
two couples courses, the relationship and a sexuality one. And then I have the women's
okay.
course and a men's course around sexuality and self-development. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I am a huge proponent of doing it for you, no matter
Yes,
your circumstances. So
absolutely.
if you are in a place where, oh, I'm divorced or I don't have a partner,
Yeah,
why not?
exactly.
Why not step into it
Right.
while you don't have the extra burden of having a partner that you have to work through stuff in
Yeah.
addition to your own stuff?
Absolutely. Because so much of being capable of an intimate relationship is being at peace with yourself. Because
Yeah.
if we're not, if we need to be loved to feel okay about ourselves, if we need someone to tell us we're okay, we're coming in a way that's not going to be, it's designed to fail because you can't extract a sense of self from another person. And so the work of coming to deeper peace with yourself is
Mm,
100% related to the depth that a relationship can be. And so the work of working out our relationship to ourselves is essential to intimacy. It's a non-negotiable of intimacy. Now, most of us enter into relationships long before we have peace with ourselves, but
mm,
those issues play out in the relationship. I need you to tell me I'm pretty. I need you to tell me I'm enough. You don't think I'm enough. I can, and so it creates conflict and burden to the relationship if we're still working out the question of ourselves through the other person, which so
mm.
often we are.
I wanted to talk about what we can do when we are triggered. So let's say if they're having an experience like mine where they say, I want to step into this work, they start one of your courses, they're doing it on their own, and they feel the pushback. What do you
Yeah.
recommend that we do in those circumstances?
The pushback from themselves, right? Is that what you mean? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
one thing I loved about your course is like, you were beautiful and so sweet. And I was like, oh, she's telling me to like dive into my sexuality. I would never guess on the
yeah.
street if I
She
saw
looks
you.
like, she doesn't look like
You
yeah,
weren't this like,
yeah,
I don't know
right.
what I was thinking it was going to be like, but
Yeah.
it just was safe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so if you're confronting your own anxiety, ambivalence, fear, I mean, I guess what I would say is sounds pretty normal to me.
Mm,
Because whenever we're growing, it means we're stepping into territory that we haven't yet mastered. And our fear response may very well get triggered, right? It's
mm,
a normal response. What can help us is giving meaning to our struggle. Human beings do hard things all the time. It defines what being human is to a large degree, is being brave, being courageous, going into territory that we haven't yet mastered. That's how we grow. That's how we develop. That's how we develop capacity within ourselves. What can be difficult is when we do hard things for no good reason. If we just think we're just suffering for no purpose, that's really demoralizing. Being stretched for a purpose helps us. And so giving purpose to our struggle. Okay, yes, I'm uncomfortable because I'm looking at things that I need to look at. And I'm doing it not to be enough for somebody else. I'm doing it to be respectful of myself, to grow in ways that I am capable of growing, to be the strong woman I was designed to be. That's why I'm doing this. So yes, it's hard. I don't need to pretend it's not, but it's hard for good reasons. And I can go the pace that I need to go here. I don't have to rush forward. I don't have to like get this all figured out today. Like you said, you've been through it 3 times. I know people that have been through it 7 times. I mean, people that have gone to retreats and they're like, I learn something new every time because they are evolving every time. And that's just really true. People are like, oh my gosh, it seems like a different course, but they're hearing new
You're
things.
a different place.
You're in
Yeah.
a different place and you're like, oh, that makes sense to me now. I didn't even know what she was talking about before. So, right. So I think that you don't have to go at any pace, and any growth, any movement is making you stronger. The other thing is, if you're feeling triggered, it means, okay, I need to work through some of the meanings here. A good therapist, a good coach, a good friend can just help you. Other women going through the course can be helpful for saying like, help me make sense of this. How, and a lot of times, you know, in the online groups and stuff, women are saying, oh, yeah, I went through that. I had the same experience. This is where I am now. So that can also really help. It's like, okay, I'm not crazy. That sounds pretty normal. That makes sense the way that she figured that out. That's helpful. So, you know, we're helping each other through as we get stronger.
Which to me is one of the greatest gifts. Just the little discussion I had in my stories yesterday about um, feeling activated by something positive around oral sex. It activated people for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And yet the beautiful responses I get are, this is making me sit in this and be curious, and I don't like it. And I'm grateful for the space.
Yeah.
Because, you know, sharing one person experience, if it helps one person,
That's right.
that was me so
Yeah.
many years ago that just needed to not feel so alone
That's
and
right.
so broken. And
That's
I
right.
know for me working through the triggers, exactly what you said, but knowing that I was doing it for myself, I think for me is what kept me going. I
Yep.
wasn't doing it for anyone else,
Yep.
because it really was like, I want this for me. I haven't
That's
had
right.
this my entire life, and I'm ready to
That's
just
right.
own it and take it
That's right.
back. And
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. I've had women come to like a live event and they came because their husband signed them up, you know, that kind of thing.
yeah,
And so they're coming in understandably guarded,
yep.
defensive, because the message is not, hey, I love you. I know you've been wanting to do this. The message for many of these women is their husband is like, hey, I'm really hoping you'll go
You
and
could get over
change.
this.
Yeah, exactly. And they're
Ugh.
resistant because they don't want the idea that they're broken. And I mean, most women don't want that, the idea I'm broken and now I have to change. What happens though, you know, most often for these women is that as they sit there, they realize they turn it from I'm doing this for my husband or I'm resisting my husband into, wait a minute, I'm doing this for me. Like I
Yep.
need to solve something inside of me. I'll figure out later what I'm doing in my marriage, but I'm doing this for me. And that's
Good.
just really, really important.
Yeah. I also chose to do some EMDR therapy
Yeah.
during that first
Right.
time I did the course, because I realized that there was some sexual trauma in there that I needed
Yes.
to
Work through.
reprocess.
Yes.
Yeah. And it
That's right.
wasn't something I could do through talk therapy or
That's
any of
right.
that. So having that in conjunction was
Yes.
really beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. The wonderful thing about EMDR as a therapy is it's just working with the body. I mean, and just going to what you were saying a minute ago, Ashlyn, which I thought was really on point, which is when the limbic brain gets involved, the limbic brain is brilliant and amazing for its purpose, which is keeping us from immediate danger. A bear is about to eat us, a car is about to run us over, whatever, we are, it's brilliant actually when it's tracking immediate danger. Our prefrontal catches up later. It's like our body's already moving and we're figuring out why we're moving later. That's how brilliant the limbic brain can be for its purpose. When it's less helpful is when it's getting set off in the middle of an argument or getting set off around somebody talking about oral sex, because it's saying, get away, get away, get away. Right. Or, take your spouse down or whatever it's telling you to do. Okay. The fight, flight, freeze response. But why it's unhelpful often is because it's just giving our brain the signal that I can't handle what's there. I have to get away. And we're not getting access to our wiser mind. And learning to just, okay, I'm going to breathe it down while I read people talking about oral sex that just freaks me out for probably some good reasons. It freaks the person out.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's not like they're making it up. Okay. But I can calm down enough while I'm here and just see if I can open up my higher mind a little bit to better understand. That doesn't mean I have to have oral sex or I have to like it or I don't honor what's happened to me that would make me not like the idea of it. But if I can calm down, I can be a little more able to see, is there something there for me to understand? Is there something there for me to take from that discussion? Is there some way I can broaden my perspective, right? You just don't want your limbic to be too helpful. And so what it requires is settling our minds down so we can use the whole organism to sort out what's there. Yeah. And EMDR can be very helpful with this because it's working with the limbic, working with the body to not jump in and keep shoving it into the same meaning box.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're saying that. Like you don't even have to do anything with it, but it's just a different perspective sometimes can be an opening for
Yeah.
me
And just
to
help you
just
make
like
choices.
just get be curious
Yeah.
and maybe not so like this
Knee
is
jerk.
black and white, right?
Yes. Because again, it's true. It's something I'm also saying to women is like, you get to make your decisions always. Like understanding this, thinking about this is not taking away your decisions. If anything, it's helping you know that they're coming from your strongest self, knowing that your decisions are coming from a position you can really stand by, not a reactive one. So you may well
Yes.
make the same exact decision, but you have more confidence in it.
With that, I want to ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
why is it important for women who have experienced betrayal to own their own sexuality when they have been
Yeah.
hurt by it in so many ways?
What I would say is because they need it more than ever. And what I mean by that is when you've been betrayed, what it's basically obliterating is the sense that I can trust you, partner,
Mm,
that I can have my sense of self reside in you because you obviously are not going to hold my dignity for me in the way that I had expected. And when that gets disrupted, it's so disorienting. But what we need is deeper strength within ourselves. We need a home within
mm,
ourselves. Because if our sense of self is walking around on our betraying partner, we're toast, right? We need and I don't mean a defiant, get the hell out of I mean, that you may say that out of your wisest mind. Okay. So I'm not saying you couldn't say that, but I don't mean a reactive, self protective
mhm,
position. I mean, how do I make deeper peace with myself as a human being, as a woman, right? As a person in the world? How do I grow more deeply into a person I respect? You need that more than ever in the face of betrayal.
mm,
And making peace with yourself is important. And sexuality is part and parcel to it, whether or not we want it to be.
mm,
Again, that's not the same thing as I have to be sexual with someone. That's a different idea. But I need to come to peace, come to terms with myself as an embodied sexual being.
I love all of that, and I think you said it perfect. It's something I did not understand,
Mm.
and can be hard to explain for me.
Mm,
There's distance between where I was hurt and where I am now.
yeah.
And people want this now. How
Yeah.
do I get 10 steps ahead
Yep.
and just blow this stuff up? How do I get
Yeah.
rid of? And
Yeah.
it wasn't one thing. It was taking your course and then taking
Yes.
it again and
Exactly.
doing EMDR. Like it was
Yes.
it was a
A
process for
process.
me, and it was
Agreed.
mine. So like
That's
my
right.
process may not even be someone
What
else's.
someone
Someone may
else's.
take your course once and like, yes,
Right.
I've come
Yeah.
back home to myself, and
Yeah.
they find that
Right.
freedom so much quicker, I hope.
That's right. Right. Yes. No, exactly. Growth is just a valuable process. It's an uncomfortable process often. And I think respecting it in ourselves, I mean, we're such a culture of wanting results, and I wish life worked like that. I wish I could just like hand people their confidence. It doesn't work like that. It's something we earn within ourselves through the way we engage with ourselves and others. And learning to do that more wisely, learning to do that better is just a process. It's like my daughter, she can't just pick up a violin and it's a process of trying and trying and trying and making steady progress, but it's hard earned. And so all development is, but it
Mm,
matters.
it
Mhm.
does matter. I really appreciate this conversation. Can give kind of a synopsis of what people would get if they chose to invest in your
Sure,
courses?
sure. So very much in line with what we're talking about, my kind of central thesis of all my courses is that as human beings, we are designed to grow and to develop into out of a kind of external reference, like tell me who to be, tell me what I should believe, tell me, to a deeper, wiser internal reference. And that's what growth is. And it's helping people to see where they're getting stuck in that, in our desire for other people to tell us we're enough, in our desire to prove ourselves, in our kind of seeing ourselves inaccurately, pushing ourselves into a kind of a one down position and so on. It's helping you to see what is happening, where you are in that roadmap, how it's related to your embodiment and your sexuality, and how to forge deeper integration, deeper peace. I know I'm using a lot of big words. I break it down. It's a lot more, it is more accessible than the way maybe it sounds, but it's helping people along that path to forge a really peaceful relationship with themselves and their sexuality. And so you can do it through the couples courses or the individual courses, the women's courses, the art of desire, the men's is art of loving, both self and sexual development courses. And highly recommend doing them alone because
Mhm.
that gives you that self-reflective place. And then I have two couples courses. One is strengthening your relationship, which is looking at what are these ways that I am working out a sense of self in my marriage that's actually interfering with the emotional intimacy of the marriage and by extension, the sexual intimacy. And then enhancing sexual intimacy is a course about how to forge a deeper, richer sexual relationship that's desirable. This is
Mhm.
not how to be the right kind of woman course, I promise. This is how do I actually understand this part of being human and who I am in it and create something more honest and more joyful, more desirable that,
Yeah.
as you were saying in the beginning, Ashlyn, like you've heard people talk about sexuality even being capable of being something spiritual and expansive. And you're like, that's not what I was experiencing.
Mm.
And a lot of people are not. But it is possible in the human experience to have a kind of meaning in sex that's about being cherished, valued, chosen, known. Okay, that's sex worth wanting. So that course
Yes.
is about helping you know what's it getting in my way of creating that, what's getting in our way, and what are ways that we could grow to create that meaning between us.
Yeah. And honestly, it's once you've experienced that higher
Way.
desire, love, expansion, spiritual experience, uh, that's why I want to talk about this. I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone can
Yeah.
have this.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Exactly.
not what I thought. I thought it was just like, this is what sex is. Okay.
Right.
Like,
No, right.
it's
It
okay.
makes it makes sense that people are not that thrilled about it. It's like when I was
Yeah.
started doing this work and I was realizing people are having a different experience than I'm having. I was having positive experience, like I wanted to be there. So it was like, well, no wonder she doesn't want that. Like, who would
Yeah.
want that? That's not worth losing an hour's sleep over.
Yeah. Well, and vice versa. I hear from
Right.
men all the time who say,
Right.
I want to give to my partner and
Exactly.
they're just not
They're
interested.
closed. They're not
And
interested.
so it's like, it's
Yes.
not just a one-sided thing. It's usually
Absolutely. It's a
both. And so
absolutely.
I have a friend right now who she took your women's course, and her husband is taking
The men's
the
course.
men's course, and they're having some of the best discussions
Oh,
together.
that's
And
great.
I just get to hear like we're having these really
Yeah.
vulnerable conversations, and I love hearing it. Like they
Yeah.
are expanding together in
Right.
their own individual
Yeah.
parts, but
Yeah.
coming, and it's cool.
I love
So
it. That's
there
awesome.
is so much opportunity out there for us to heal, and like you've said, this entire episode, it's gonna
Yeah.
take some practice and some work, and it is so worth it.
Yeah.
And I think you've
Yeah. So
created a
true.
really safe space.
Yeah, I've loved working with the men too. When I developed the course and teaching it live many times, and the men in the men's group, and a lot of them were like, after they started looking at themselves more clearly, they're like, "Oh, geez, no wonder she doesn't want it." Like
Yes.
I haven't been as generous of a lover as I thought. I haven't been as interested in knowing her as I thought. I've maybe wanted reinforcement more than I've wanted to really know who she is. And as you say, Ashlyn, we're complicit. We do these things together usually.
Yeah.
But yeah, men definitely do well to look more deeply at themselves as partners and lovers. So yeah.
Mm, I love it.
Mm,
Well, thank you for this conversation. I am sure there were lots of takeaways for people today to hear. If they want to find more of you, again, the information is in the show notes. You have a podcast, you have great Instagram stuff, you have your online groups, you have your courses, retreats. There's so many
yes.
things you can do. So
Yes.
figure out what way works for you for now and take a start.